It was a quiet autumn day at Xavier Institute. The leaves were golden and the students were enjoying the sunshine in the garden. Professor Charles Xavier was doing his routine scan in the cerebro room when suddenly his brain was flooded with a jarring signal. When he opened his eyes, he had a look of concern and surprise on his face. "Jean, Scott, come to my room now," he called out telepathically. Within minutes, Jean Grey and Scott Summers entered the professor's room. When they saw the serious expression on Xavier's face, they knew something was wrong. "What is it, Professor?" Scott asked, his voice slightly strained. Xavier took a deep breath. "I just received a distant signal from Cerebro, a mutant signal." Jean's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "That's not unusual, is it?" "What's unusual is where the signal came from," Xavier said, a chill in his voice. "The signal isn't coming from Earth." Scott and Jean looked at each other in surprise. "What do you mean, Professor?" Scott asked. "I mean, guys," Xavier said, "this signal is coming from space, more specifically from the Andromeda Galaxy." The room fell silent for a moment. Jean spoke, trying to collect her thoughts. "But that's impossible, isn't it? I mean, as far as we know, mutants only exist on Earth." Xavier shook his head from side to side. "It turns out we were wrong. And there's more. This mutant is sending out a distress call, in fear and desperation." Scott stepped forward, his leadership instincts kicking in. "What can we do, Professor?" Xavier answered thoughtfully. "First, we need to assemble a team. This could be the most challenging and dangerous mission we've ever faced. Any volunteers?" Scott and Jean raised their hands without hesitation. "We're ready," Jean said decisively. Xavier smiled. "Thank you. Now we need to inform the others. I want to involve Aurora, Kurt, and Logan in this mission."
Before we continue with our video, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and support us. Thanks.
Hours later, the X-Men gathered in the danger room. Xavier explained the situation in detail and answered everyone's questions. The team members were aware of the difficulty and risks of the mission, but they were all excited by the idea of rescuing a mutant in need of help. "So, how will we get to space?" asked Kurt, wagging his blue tail anxiously. A mysterious smile appeared on Xavier's face. "I have a surprise for you. Follow me." The team followed Xavier to the lower levels of the Institute. Finally, they stopped in front of a huge hangar door. Xavier pressed a button and the doors opened. Inside stood a streamlined spacecraft made of shiny metal. "I am proud to introduce to you the new version of the X-Jet X-Voyager," Xavier said proudly. "Hank and I have been working on this project in secret for years, designed for long-distance space travel." The crew members marveled at the vehicle. Logan whistled. "Wow, Professor, you still managed to amaze us." Xavier turned to his team with a serious expression. "This mission will be different from anything we've ever encountered. You're going to an unknown planet, and you're likely to encounter a hostile environment. Make your preparations accordingly." The team quickly began preparations. Hank made a final check of X-Voyager's systems, while the others gathered the necessary equipment. Jean meditated to calm her mind, while Scott worked on strategy plans. When it was time to take off, Xavier was in the hangar to see his crew off. "Be careful and look after each other," he said, looking each of them in the eye. "And remember, no matter what happens, the X-Men are a family." X-Voyager's engines started, the hangar roof opened, and the ship slowly lifted off. The crew members were both excited and nervous as they settled into their seats and began their journey into the unknown. As they broke through Earth's atmosphere, Scott called out from the pilot's seat, "Everybody ready? Hank, start the hyperspace engines." Hank pressed a few buttons and pulled a lever. Hyperspace engine engaged. "Hold on." X-Voyager suddenly accelerated and entered hyperspace in a burst of light. As the crew members clung to their seats, they saw the stars streaming in streaks through the windows. Jean closed her eyes and concentrated. "I can still detect the signal. We're heading in the right direction." During the hours of travel, The team discussed possible scenarios and strategized. Kurt tried to lighten the tense atmosphere with occasional jokes. Finally, Hank's voice was heard. "We are approaching the target planet. Prepare for exit from hyperspace." When X-Voyager emerged from hyperspace, the crew found themselves orbiting a large planet dominated by green and blue colors. Around the planet was a bright ring and 2 small moons. "Wow," Aurora whispered, mesmerized by the beauty of the landscape. Logan snorted. "It may look beautiful, but remember why we're here. We have a job to do." Scott leaned over the control panel. "Initiating atmospheric analysis. Let's see if we can breathe." A few minutes later, the results came back. Hank announced with relief, "The atmosphere is breathable. The oxygen content is a little high, but not dangerous." "What about indigenous life forms?" asked Jean. Hank studied the screens. "Scanners are detecting various life forms, but it's difficult to determine their technology level. We'll have to be careful." Scott stood up and turned to his team. "Okay, everyone, here's the plan. We're going to land and explore the environment. Jean, keep following the signal. Kurt and Aurora will do aerial reconnaissance. Logan will be the advance force with me. Hank, stay on board and maintain communications." The crew nodded in agreement. X-Voyager slowly entered the planet's atmosphere, turning into a bright fireball as it began to descend. Hank, skillfully controlling the ship, made a soft landing in an open field at the edge of a dense forest. As the landing ramp opened, the crew members cautiously stepped out. The scenery around them was breathtaking. Huge, shiny-leafed trees reaching into the sky. Colorful, oddly shaped plants everywhere. In the distance, unidentifiable animal sounds could be heard. Logan sniffed the air. "There's a strange odor. Be careful." Jean closed her eyes and concentrated. "I can perceive the signal more clearly. It's coming from this way," she said, pointing into the dense forest. The team started moving in the direction Jean had indicated. Kurt and Aurora took to the air and kept watch from above, while the others moved cautiously through the forest. Suddenly, Logan stopped and raised his hand. "Stop. I heard something." They all froze. The sound of rustling in the bushes was getting closer. The team took up defensive positions, waiting, not knowing what to expect. The bushes parted, and they were stunned by the sight that confronted them. A 4-armed humanoid creature with bright blue skin was staring at them. The creature's eyes were wide open, staring at the X-Men with surprise and fear. Scott took a step forward and raised his hands in a peaceful gesture. We are friends," he said slowly, hoping the words would make sense. The blue creature cocked its head to the side, then turned abruptly and started running into the forest. "Stop, please," Jean called out, but it was too late. Logan grunted. "Great, now what?" Scott took a deep breath. "For now, we continue with our plan. Jean, keep following the signal, but you all stay alert. Now that they know we exist, things could get complicated." The team was on the move again, full of hope to find the mysterious mutant they had come to rescue as they traveled through this alien world full of unknowns. But they were not yet aware of the challenges and surprises ahead. The X-Men continued to make their way through the dense and alien vegetation of the jungle. With each step, the world around them grew stranger. Fluorescent-colored mushrooms wrapped around tree trunks. Giant leaves shriveled in response to the sound of footsteps. Clouds of glittering spores danced in the wind. Jean, his eyes half closed, led the way, his concentration unbroken. "The signal is getting stronger," she said in a low voice. "I think we're heading in the right direction." Logan was scanning the environment with his keen senses. "This planet smells alive," he muttered. "Everything feels connected." Aurora called out from above. "There's a clearing ahead, and I think I see structures." The team accelerated in the direction Aurora pointed. As they emerged from the trees, a small settlement appeared before them. The structures were made up of organic forms resembling giant mushrooms. Each one was a different color and size, some reaching up to the sky, others seemingly merging with the ground. Scott stopped his team. Okay, let's be careful. We're dealing with an unfamiliar culture. John, can you make a telepathic connection? John concentrated, then shook her head from side to side in frustration. Their minds are very different. I can't make a meaningful connection. Just then there was movement from the settlement. A group of the blue-skinned creatures they had seen earlier were advancing towards them, wielding spears made of shiny crystals. They don't look friendly, Kurt said, wagging his tail nervously. Scott stepped forward, his hands above his head. We are here for peace, he said loudly and slowly. We don't want to hurt anyone. The blue creatures paused. One of them, a figure taller and older than the others, stepped forward. He raised the crystal staff in his hand, and suddenly a voice echoed in the minds of the X-Men. Outsiders, why have you come? What do you want? The team members looked at each other in confusion. John answered, We received a call. We are looking for someone who needs help. The old creature squinted at them. A call? What call? This time Logan stepped forward. Listen, man, we're the X-Men. We're from Earth, and we're here to rescue a mutant who's stranded here. Hand him over to us and we'll leave. We don't want any trouble with anyone. The old creature's eyes widened. Did you say mutant? Are you transporters too? The team looked at each other in surprise. Transporters? Asked Aurora. What do you mean? The old creature lowered his staff. Come, he said mentally. We have much to discuss.